Welcome into this edition of Dolphins Today. Happy to have you along, and a lot to get to on today's show. You've heard the rumors, and it's becoming more and more apparent that Frank Smith, the Dolphins offensive coordinator, is a hot commodity on the NFL head coaching search. My name is Jake Riepma. Happy to have you along for Dolphins Today. We're also going to discuss about Derrick Henry, the well-known running back for the Tennessee Titans, now a free agent, had some very interesting comments on the popular podcast Bussin with the Boys, and we'll break down exactly what he may have meant by those comments. And then we're also going to discuss whether or not it's time to move on from Danny Crossman, the Miami Dolphins Special Teams coordinator. But at the top of everybody's list is what's going on with Frank Smith, and will he be the Dolphins offensive coordinator in 2024? I've seen the rumors, you've seen the rumors, and the latest with the Dolphins offensive coordinator, Frank Smith, is that he has interviewed with two NFL teams. First, the Seattle Seahawks earlier this week. Obviously, the Seahawks moved on from Pete Carroll as part of their offseason plans. And additionally, Frank Smith conducted a virtual interview with the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Carolina Panthers, obviously, say what you will about that franchise, but not necessarily in a position you want to be, given all the controversy with the owner, David Tepper, as well as just the continuous shortcomings of the Carolina Panthers. So, if you have to put it all together, and Frank Smith has interviewed with two different NFL franchises, where would you rather Frank Smith end up? Type SEA for Seattle or CAR for Carolina. Where do you think Frank Smith goes if he does, in fact, become a head coach in the National Football League? Now, coming up, we're going to dive into why Frank Smith deserves an opportunity, or if he'll get one. But first, I want to remind you to subscribe to the channel Dolphins Today. Look, we've had some tremendous growth over the course of the NFL season, and as we transition to the offseason, the content doesn't stop. We've got some great videos planned, and when breaking news happens, we've got you covered on those angles as well. We're at 55,300 right now. We need 700 subscribers to get to our next milestone of 56,000, and I'll tell you this, I'll let you in on a little secret. The bosses at Chat Sports, well, they're thinking about going to sub-only mode, so if you don't want to miss anything, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Again, I'm not telling you, but I'm telling you, there is a very, very real potential that Dolphins Today will become sub-only mode here in the coming days. So make sure you subscribe. Like I said, we're very close to 56,000, the largest Dolphins YouTube community out there, and I don't want you to miss anything, especially some of those great videos that we've got coming up in the offseason, because this is a big offseason for the Miami Dolphins, and part of that offseason is what happens with Frank Smith. And just in case you need a refresher, he's the Dolphins offensive coordinator for the past two seasons, and he has led a very prolific offense. And I know, I've read the comments, they've struggled against some of the better defenses, but at the end of the day, he was able to lead this Miami Dolphins offense to one of the best offenses in the NFL. And when you look at his pedigree of experience and looking back at where he's been in the NFL, he was run game coordinator and offensive line coach in LA for the Chargers in 2021, also spent some time with the Raiders organization. So he's a proven coordinator in this league. Now it becomes a question of whether or not he gets an opportunity to be a head coach. And like I mentioned, the Dolphins offense certainly has an impressive resume over the last year. They're number one in total offense and second in scoring offense. And the only knock, or maybe not even a knock on Frank Smith, is the fact that Mike McDaniel actually calls the plays. So yes, Frank Smith is the offensive coordinator, but Mike McDaniel is calling the plays, or has for the last 2 years, for the Miami Dolphins. And speaking of Mike McDaniel, here's what he had to say earlier in the season on Frank Smith in an interview with The Athletic. Just glowing remarks from Mike McDaniel for his offensive coordinator, saying, quote, "He has a thorough understanding of the game and is a great teacher, which is really what coaching is all about. He also has a unique ability to anticipate problems before they arise, be that on the field or in administrative type things. able to relate to schedules, questions that will come up with players, coaches, etc. McDaniel went on to say he operates on a daily basis with a passion, positivity, and humility that is rare and sets him apart. It's hard for me to summarize the positive impact Frank has had on our team, our coaching staff, and especially in supporting me as a head coach. Those are some glowing remarks from Mike McDaniel, and they certainly sound like qualifications of a head coach in the NFL, be it on the field, with the players, and as Mike McDaniel alluded to, the ability to anticipate even administrative problems, because we know when you're an NFL head coach, you're also a CEO. So let me know what you think. Where will Frank Smith be in 2024? If you think he'll still be the offensive coordinator for the Dolphins, type OC in the comments. If you think he's going to be a head coach for two of the franchises I mentioned, go ahead and type HC in the comments. Now, coming up, we've got to take a long look at the Miami Dolphins special teams because I will level with you. They were not good. In fact, they were woeful. So we'll dive into that. But first, I want to tell you about today's presenting sponsor, America's #1 meal delivery service, and that is Factor. I've been telling you about Factor for weeks now, and you know by now that it's some of the most delicious food you will eat, and it's delivered straight to your door. So as we turn the calendar into 2024, Factor is here to help you get started on your resolutions so that you're ready for the new year. And speaking of ready, Factor's meals are ready to eat. They're fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved, and they help take the stress out of meal planning. They set you up for success in the new year, and who doesn't want that? So skip the grocery store, skip the prep work, and oh yes, say goodbye to the cooking fatigue as well. Instead, how about some chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door? Let me say that again because it's my favorite part. They're delivered right to your door, so forget rubbing elbows with in the crowded grocery store. Yeah, that's right. The meals are delivered straight to your door. There's over 35 meals to choose from per week, and that includes options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and so much more. And don't forget about the 55 weekly add-ons. So there's tons of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart those resolutions. Don't take my word for it. Head to factormeals.com/FinsChat50 and use code FinsChat50 to get 50% off. Riepma, are you serious? I am. 50% off. All you have to do is use that code FinsChat50 at factormeals.com/FinsChat50. And oh yeah, we love you and we care about you. So we'll put that link right in the comments and description of today's video. So we're making it easy on you. factormeals.com/FinsChat50 for 50% off. Now, if you're with us for any of our watch parties, you know I'm a special teams guy. It's a third of the game. It can't be overlooked. And the Dolphins fell woefully short in 2023 by a number of different special teams metrics. Let's take a look at some of them. They finished 31st overall in special team unit rankings. Now, a lot goes into it, everything from net punting, opponent average starting point, kick return coverage, kick return yardage, punt return yardage, and so on and so forth. And when you mix it all together in a blender, the Dolphins were one of the worst, and by one of the worst, I mean the 31st overall team in special team rankings. And frankly, I don't have to tell you that, but that is abysmal and will not cut it. In 2023, the Dolphins allowed 130 yards to kickoff. That was the worst in the NFL. So, that being said, the opponent's starting point was also the worst for the Dolphins. Opponents were averaging starting past the 25-yard line, which, if you think about it in terms from a defensive angle, that's like getting a first down on every single possession. Dolphins special teams unit has to be better. Now, part of that was the shortcomings of the punting unit. They were bad as well. I don't have to remind you about the Week 18 punt return that Buffalo used to really springboard them into momentum to take that game from the Miami Dolphins. That punt return by Hardy late in the game in the fourth quarter. The Dolphins had the 4th worst gross punt average in the NFL and the 10th worst net punting average. And that doesn't fall all on Jake Bailey in 2023, but obviously as the punter of this unit, that is squarely on him, and he's a big reason why the Dolphins punt team was very bad in 2023. So when you think about Danny Crossman, the special teams coordinator, he's been in that position since 2019, but many are calling for him to be fired. He spent 21 seasons of the NFL of his experience as an NFL special teams coordinator. That's quite a bit. Obviously, I don't have to tell you that. 21 seasons as an NFL special teams coordinator, 31 years of total coaching experience. So the guy's proven. He is a legend in the special teams ranks, but his Dolphins special team units were just not good enough this season. But something should be said about how well Jason Sanders played this season, one of the more accurate kickers in the NFL, and Danny Crossman has been with Jason Sanders for all but one of his years in Miami and helped him become the most accurate kicker in Dolphins history. So there's some good, there's a lot of experience, but there's also a lot of bad, and I don't think it's overly reactionary to say, hey, maybe Danny Crossman needs to be let go. But I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments, do you want Danny Crossman to be fired or to return next season? If you want the Dolphins to say goodbye and fire their special teams coordinator, type F in the comments. If you want him to come back and say, hey, look, it was a bad year, they can improve. He's a proven ST coordinator in the NFL. Go ahead and type R for return. Now, let's have some, not even have some fun, because this is what happened on a popular podcast, Bussin with the Boys by Barstool Sports. Derrick Henry, you know him as the Tennessee Titans running back and a very, very impressive, proven running back in this league. He said, quote, I wanted to go to Miami. I wanted to play for the Dolphins. That's where I wanted to go. That's where I thought I was going. He later went on to say on the Bussin with the Boys podcast, I want to be somewhere that, whatever happens, gives me the best shot of winning the Super Bowl. So how about that? And it's worth noting that Derrick Henry is a free agent, and remember his speech to the fans in Nashville after his last game of the regular season with the Tennessee Titans, essentially thanked the fans, but made it very clear he is open, if not leaning towards the idea of moving on in 2024. And although he's a little bit long in the tooth, I think he still has some gas left in the tank. You look at his numbers from the past season, over 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, and he was a workhorse, carried the ball 280 times. And when you look at the Dolphins running back room, obviously that's a position of strength for Miami with the year Raheem Mostert had, setting the franchise record for both rushing touchdowns and total touchdowns. Devon Achane has only scratched the surface of his potential. All you have to do is turn on the tape against the Denver Broncos in that game, and he had one of the best yards per carry in NFL history when it was all said and done. And Jeff Wilson Jr. contributed as well. So it's a crowded running back room already, but obviously some depth never hurts, especially when you consider the amount of injuries that amounted for the Dolphins, specifically in the running back room in 2023. So put your GM hat on for me for a second and be the general manager. If you're Chris Greer, should Miami sign Derrick Henry? He's a free agent. He wanted to be drafted by the Dolphins. He's a fan. He's got some gas left in the tank. Let me know. What do you think should happen? Go ahead and type S for sign or P for pass. We know about the cap situation that the Dolphins are in, expected to be $40 million over the cap. So the idea of signing free agents would take a lot of creativity. But hey, you got a guy like Derrick Henry that wants to be a Miami Dolphin. Maybe you go make it happen. Either way, let me know. Want to thank everybody for tuning into this edition of Dolphins Today. Always a pleasure to have you covering the aqua and orange alongside and bringing you the latest from Miami. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, we're getting close to going to sub only, which would mean you miss out if you haven't yet subscribed. We're very close to 56,000 subscribers, so help us reach that goal. And those of you that have recently subscribed, we certainly appreciate it. And don't worry, just because it's the offseason doesn't mean we're not bringing you daily Dolphins video content from every single angle covering the aqua and orange. I want to thank my producer, Jake Chipper, on the ones and twos today. Always a pleasure to be with the Chipper. And we'll see you next time on Dolphins Today.